Hi, I'm Marcel from Objectos, and welcome to the single file Objectos Way video series, where we will create a fully functional web application using Objectos Way, and all the code will be contained in a single Java file. Right. So let's start by running the application before we actually look at the code. So let's create a working directory. And the cool thing is that we don't need a build tool for this demo in particular. The instructions are in README of the GitHub. The instructions are in the README of the GitHub repository, which I'll leave a link later. And the first thing we need to do is get the Objectos Way jar file. Then we get the application source file. It's a single Java file. And then we start the application. And it started. So no build tool, single jar file, and we can launch it straight from as a source file. Now, if we go to localhost 8080, it responds with it works. If we try a different path, it responds with not found. Let's try like bar path, not found. And if we go back to the root, it says it works. Alright, so let's stop this and let's look at the code. So here's the whole code, the whole source file. It's 48 lines, including the file header. Of course, it's the first iteration, so it's quite simple. And we're using a bunch of preview features of JDK 24, which, by the way, is the version we ran our application. And the Objectos Way jar file is modular. So, and since we're using JDK 24, we can use the module import declaration. In this first iteration, the whole application it's contained in a single method, which happens to be the instance main method. We begin the main method by declaring and creating a node sync. And for the purpose of this demo, a node sync, we can think of it as being a logger. And we're creating a console node sync, so all of the nodes will be sent to the console. Next, we create a shutdown hook, which runs when the JVM shuts down. And we're using the node sync to create the shutdown hook. So it will use this instance to send all of these nodes. Then we create our web server handler. We're saying that all of the requests to the web server will be handled by this object. And we configure it in a declarative way. We're saying that whenever the request path is the root path, and whenever the request method is the get method, then this method is allowed. And you should use this handler to handle this specific request. And what does this handler do? It always responds with 200 OK. And the response message is the the content is the UTF-8 bytes of the string, and the content type is text plain, and that's what we saw when we browsed to localhost 88. Sorry. Now, if the request is not for the root path, then all other requests will be handled by this handler, which does what? It always responds with 404 not found, and with the not found text message. One thing we didn't try it when we ran the demo is that since we only declare the get method as an allow method, if we try, for instance, do a post to the root path, then it is a not allowed method. It will respond with 4 or 5 not method not allowed, right? Okay, so this is our handler, and with our handler we can create our HTTP server, which we specify here in the options. We also specify that the server should use the node sync we created earlier, and the server should listen to the 8080 port. Once we have the server object created, we register with our shutdown hook. So when the JVM shuts down, this hook will invoke the close method of our server object. Finally, we start our server. And since this start operation involves some I/O, like opening the server socket, it throws an I/O exception which we declared in our main method. And that's it. So for this demo, we didn't have to run any build tools. We just had to download a single jar file, the Objectos Way jar file. It has a web server out of the box, which runs on virtual threads, and that's it. So the idea of this series is that we'll incrementally improve on this initial implementation, so that on each increment we'll show one little feature of the Objectos Way. And so I hope you enjoyed this video, and share it with your friends or coworkers, or share it even if you didn't like it, right? And until the next single file Objectos Way. Thank you for watching, and that's it. Bye.